Awesome.
Got it.
Okay, I'm gonna let everyone in now. There we go.
Oh, we also have to get a screenshot at the end. I always forget. I
Of
always forget.
course, I will remember.
4 years old. 2 hours, 4 years old.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. You can feel free to turn on your camera, but please stay muted so that we can all hear. All right, we can get started. So, hi everyone, my name is Emma. I am the manager of project management at LeGal, and today we have Averie speaking with us. So we have a bunch of questions planned to ask her, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I can ask them to her at the end if we have time. But feel free to put any questions down and we can get started. So the first question I have for you today is, can you please share a little bit about yourself, especially your story, and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. I guess I can take it all the way back to my humble beginnings. I was born in a small town in Texas called McKinney, and I went to the school district called Prosper ISD. That 12-year experience going to Prosper, everyone in that really small town, they were predominantly white. I went to a Title I school, which means that we were severely underfunded, or the majority of the students that went to those schools were from low income families. My family, both my parents worked 2 jobs each. Neither of them graduated from college. My mom had broken English when I was growing up. We also relied on food programs and even experienced housing insecurity as we grew up in that small town in Texas. All of those challenges really shaped me into the person and advocate that I am today. I personally felt that when I was growing up in that small town, I didn't have I didn't have the value, or I didn't deserve to take up space. I didn't deserve to speak up. And so through those challenges, I grew to love what made me different, all of the unique things and the special challenges I had to go through. And it helped me grow into the person that I am today. Today, I am now 26 years old. I am currently Miss Texas. I'm the first Asian American woman to win the title in 85-year history. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college, first in my family to graduate from law school. And I'll talk more about my specific experiences through law school throughout this session. And then additionally, I run an international nonprofit with my mom where we provide scholarships to young girls in Southeast Asia. And I also have my own business. So I am a small business owner. I was able to do this because of the community that you all helped me build on social media. Due to that large following, I was able to do a lot of paid social media advertisements. So I incorporated my own business back in January. So that takes up a lot of my time nowadays. Then again, later on, we'll talk about my specific legal experiences, but that is sort of my journey in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much. First of all, congratulations on everything, of course. And thank you for sharing about your childhood. I feel like a lot of people don't get into that part, but it really showed us how, like, why you're here today and how you got there. So thank you for that. And then the next question we have is, how did you decide to go to law school? And did you always know that you wanted to become a lawyer when you grew up?
First answer is that I didn't always, on pause. I think someone needs to mute. Okay, I think we're good. No worries, don't be embarrassed if that was you. So first, I think it's a 2-part question. So the first answer was, did I always know I wanted to be an attorney, or did I always know I wanted to go to law school? The answer is no. When I was growing up, again, I mentioned my upbringing and the challenges I faced. I didn't even think I would go to college because I couldn't afford it. I was stressed and anxious about the financial situation of my own family. So I felt that I didn't deserve to go off to college and take off loans and live my life independently from my family. So I did not know I wanted to always be an attorney. In fact, right now I'm still like, do I want to be a traditional attorney? I don't know. I might use my law degree in a non-traditional sense, like go into politics and write policy for the government in Washington, D.C. Who knows where my journey will lead. But the reason why I did decide to go to law school was because, number one, I was very fearful and afraid. Number two, for the somewhat of a expectation to make lots of money, right? So there's this idea that you'll make lots of money after you graduate law school. And then finally, to make my parents and my community happy, I'm going to be honest, I really did not go to law school for myself. And I will tell you right now, my greatest piece of advice is if you are considering going to law school, that choice has to be your own. You have to be selfish and you have to make sure that this is what you want. If the decision to go to law school relies on other people, other organizations, other factors outside of your life, you will likely not enjoy or even regret your experience in law school. So the three main reasons why I went to law school is number one, out of fear. I received a bachelor's in human rights and sociology. So in my head, I was like, what am I going to do with the human rights and sociology degree? Number two, for money, right? I came from a very financially insecure background. I loved the idea of possibly making a good amount of money or a reliable, consistent salary. Then finally, for my community, my mom is a Filipino immigrant. So she placed a lot of pressure on me to continue going through school. It was a good pressure most of the time. So I went and decided to go to law school rather than medical school, because that was also on the table at one point. So out of fear, because of my mom and also for the money. But looking back now, retrospectively, now that I'm 26 and I'm done with law school, the main reason why I chose to go is because I wanted to help people. Deep down, I knew that other people were facing even greater challenges in the legal system, especially my mom, who it took her 7 years to become a citizen here in the US. So I wanted to give back and serve my community some way, some form. So I know after all of that, in the moment when I chose to go to law school at 21, it was for those first three reasons. Now I look back and it was really because I had the heart to serve and to give back to my community.
Awesome, thank you. I think like the community pressure and like the familial pressure, sorry, kind of ties into our next question, which is, as a first generation law student entering an industry that is predominantly run by white men, how do you stay confident and focused on achieving your mission?
Yeah, I would say not getting in the weeds of thinking you have to make it by a certain age. Again, I mentioned I'm 26. For some reason, I know that a lot of the younger generation thinks that when you get older in your late 20s or in your 30s, like you're dead. You're no longer relevant. Like you're not important. After you're 30, you don't exist. But in reality, I feel like you make a lot of impact and positivity when you're in your late 20s and 30s, and there's something to look forward to. That being said, with your age and your pressure from your family, even from like if you're from an immigrant family like mine, there's a lot of pressure to make it, to make the American dream, to set a goal and make it out to New York, make it out to LA. But once you make it, once you achieve this goal, this expectation that's been set by other people outside of you, then what happens next if you make it? There's nothing left afterwards. So for me, one of the great ways I stay focused in a male-dominated white industry is to not let others set goals for me. I'm the one who makes the decision of what are my expectations for myself? How do I want to set goals for myself? And I never try to feed into what all of the people around me are telling me I should achieve. Because then you're like, setting really difficult sort of benchmarks that once you receive those benchmarks, once you accomplish them, then you feel a self of like not as much self-satisfaction because you're moving on to the next make it type goal or expectation. So set your goals for yourself. Don't let anybody else set those goals for you. And then as for actual tangible skills I can give you in a male-dominated white industry, Whenever you go into interviews, you're speaking, if you go into a boardroom, when you're negotiating, and this can be applied to whenever you do interviews, regardless of whether you go to actual law school, is holding eye contact with the person you're speaking to. That's a power move. Being someone who shows up early and stays late to activities or meetings, that's also a power move. That's how you can take up space. Number three, never questioning yourself in a event or meeting or negotiation opportunity. You need to say what you say as a statement and never end your sentence as a question, because then you are taking away power from yourself and questioning whether or not you deserve to speak or whether you are smart. And I'm here to tell you you are smart and you deserve to take up space. So speak as in statements, don't question what you say, show up early, stay late, and also hold eye contact with people, have a firm handshake. So those are ways that you can leverage power in a male-dominated white industry.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure we'll all be taking that advice that you just gave into the future. I literally have an interview later this week, and I'll definitely be using that.
Oh,
advice.
good luck.
Thank you. The next question is also about advice. So what advice would you give in terms of looking for internships and jobs, as well as getting involved in on and off campus?
So I think this question leans into the word networking. That seems to intimidate and scare a lot of students. As a first generation college student, whenever I heard the word networking, I ran away with my tail in between my legs because I'm also an introvert. I thought that networking would be where I had to force myself into settings with hundreds of people, having to fight for the attention of interviewers and companies I wanted to work for. But you have to approach networking in a different way. I had to change my mindset when it came to networking to get over the fear and intimidation of what that meant. I like to think of it as community building. I am building a network of people, of friends I can lean on whenever I need an opportunity to grow in my career. So when you don't approach networking as, oh, I need to meet people so that I can get a job, instead, if you approach it as, I want to build a community of like-minded people that I can rely on, that I can go and get coffee with, then it kind of lightens up the mood and doesn't make it so serious. So I think that's one of the great ways to build a network. And that's important if you want to get an internship. So a lot of my jobs that I received in undergrad, working in Congress, I was a congressional fellow. Working in politics, I led a political campaign for a representative here in Texas. Other internships I had when I was an undergrad was a human rights fellowship with the United Nations. All of these opportunities came from the people I knew. I'm not saying just because I knew someone, they gave me the job, but when you know a person from a company that you want to work for, if you are already established a relationship with the business, if you have gotten coffee out with a mentor who happens to be working at a company that you see yourself working for in the next year, you are already taking advantage and being in front of the giant pile of applicants who are applying for that same position. So leverage your connections, leverage your community when you are applying for those internships. And finally, LinkedIn is so antiquated in my opinion. I think it's so old school. They could do a better job of I don't know, upgrading their platform and making it less job professional targeted. But if you want an internship, I recommend cold reaching out to alumni who have worked at that internship that you want to apply for and asking to go to coffee with them on LinkedIn. I have a lot of cold email and message examples on my own website just to help those of you out who don't know where to start and how to do that on LinkedIn. But you can essentially filter under the search engine for your specific university and whether or not they have worked at the company you want to work for. Find those people that intersect at those two things and reach out to them asking for coffee, because they will be your greatest advocate as you apply for those internships.
Amazing. Thank you. I'm sure a lot of people are nervous or stressed out about networking and reaching out, especially sending those cold messages and cold emails. So that definitely really helped. And I'm sure people will be using your advice in the future. Also, I'm not sure if I froze or you froze. I'm not sure. Oh. What just happened?
I know.
Okay. I think yes. I don't know who froze there, but
We're
now
live?
we're good. Yes, we're good. We're
Are
good.
we okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was like, what is going on? Okay, cool. Sorry.
Now we're good.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, so our next set of questions, sorry about that, is about law school and basically your law school experience and journey. So the first one is attending law school what you imagine it to be? What do you think of the school environment in general, including professors, resources, the workload, the competitiveness, and the students in general?
Yeah, I would say it was, you're told time and time again of what to expect from law school. And I still took that into consideration when I entered my first year, but it was not what I expected at all. Granted, my experience was very different from what you will likely experience in the fact that I graduated during the pandemic. During my first year of law school, there was a lot of orientation events where they told many of us that they didn't tell us directly this, but if you don't go into big law, for example, then you are not worthy, you won't make a lot of money, and you're essentially not the smart kids. Big law jobs are the coveted, high paying positions with large law firms in the US or across the world. And there are very limited opportunities to work for them. So, with that in my head, I entered law school under the impression that if I didn't make top 10%, I would not be successful using my law degree. We were also not told about the alternative ways we could use a Juris Doctorate. So many of us degree. Now, first semester ends. I get my first semester grades back. They're horrible. And I'm someone who associates my value and success with my GPA. It was really hard to let go of that pressure I placed on myself when it came to academics. So when I got those grades back, I went into a really deep, dark spiral of anxiety, depression, and stress. And then, spring semester of my first year of law school, the pandemic happened. And poop just hit the fan. At that point, everybody at my law school during that time had to reevaluate their intentions of going to law school. I realized that I wanted to do something still creative while still using my Juris Doctorate. So during that time, I downloaded TikTok as a means to have a creative outlet and also to find a community that was experiencing the same thing that I was during the pandemic. All of us had transitioned to online learning. Many of us were having a difficult time paying attention and enjoying school. So I was able to build a community of like-minded students who were struggling just the way that I was with the decisions I made to go to law school, with my experience and how different it was than what I expected. All I can say is that when you do go to law school, or you're making that decision, I highly recommend that you, number one, shadow attorneys, work in a law firm, find an internship in the legal industry. Number two, sit in on law school classes or courses, or take law school legal type classes in your undergrad. I took many of those when I was an undergrad. I took a constitutional law course, and I also took a First Amendment speech class. So I recommend doing those two things just so that you can really experience what law school could possibly be like and make a better informed decision on whether you still want to go.
For sure. Thank you for that. I think that this next question kind of ties into what you just said as well. And that is, did you know what field of law you wanted to practice in before attending law school, or if you wanted to be an attorney at all before law school? And if not, were there any resources in place that helped to narrow down to a specific field of interest?
Again, earlier I mentioned how the three reasons in the moment when I was 21 and I decided to go to law school straight from undergrad was number one, out of fear and confusion of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I had a bachelor's in human rights and sociology degree. I knew I wanted to advocate for communities and underrepresented people. I just didn't know exactly what type of law that would look like. At that time, I had done a lot of work on Capitol Hill and in Congress, writing and helping passing laws that were really focused on providing resources to underfunded schools, and also worked on a really cool law that went towards cyberbullying and making that illegal in certain states and having repercussions for individuals who cyberbully on social media. So all of that experience, I knew that some shape or form, I wanted to advocate for marginalized communities. And with my human rights degree, I also had a lot of experience in civil rights and international human rights type law. Granted, I went to law school, and a lot of the things that they tell you during orientation is not to have blinders on. A lot of people go into law school thinking they know what type of law they want to practice and come out the other end with a completely different desire to work in a different space they never considered. So during law school, because I knew I wanted to advocate and help communities, I actually did a legal clinic where I represented children and partners who were domestically abused by their family members. And that experience changed my life. For a whole year as a student attorney, I worked with another team member where we represented real life people, like children and their mothers, who were abused by their family members. And we went through the entire court process of providing restraints, child custody orders for these children and mothers who want to protect themselves from their abusers. And that is something that I hope to continue doing on a pro bono level, providing all of these family and children type services to underprivileged members who cannot afford those type of resources. Additionally, I also worked in-house for Susan G. Komen. In-house means that you're doing a lot more administrative type tasks for a business or corporation. Susan G. Komen is a nonprofit. So during that time, I worked on a lot of contracts. It was a lot of paperwork, a lot of reading, in contrast with my legal clinic, where I was doing hands-on representation in court, writing arguments, writing memos. And then finally, my last experience in law school and where I can currently consult with is Level Up Legal. So that is a law firm in Manhattan and New York, where I worked primarily on intellectual property matters. So trademarks, copyrights, and also branding contracts for social media and influencers. Those are three very different types of law, all of which I have been able to integrate together and have helped me become an advocate and a business owner currently in my present moment. After I'm done being Miss Texas, I'm unsure where I want to go, what type of law I truly want to practice. I just know that I, at the end of the day, want to serve and to give. You can easily be persuaded by all these high-paying positions. I am in a very privileged place where I can take on less paying positions that are not certainly desired all the time by law students. For example, pro bono services, government work, public defense, family and children. A lot of those are low paying positions. But because I'm in a privileged, financially stable place, thanks to the business I run, I can take on the actual positions I wanted to take on when I started law school.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think a lot of the times, like law school admissions people and just people in general tell us that, oh, you need to know like what field you want to go into before going to law school and stuff like that. So that definitely really helped me, and I'm sure the other people listening to your presentation right now. And I really like how you like worked in all different types of like law so far. So that was really, really cool. So thank you for sharing. And I know that you shared earlier about how you would recommend people to take legal, like courses that kind of have to do with the legal field or like law classes in undergrad. But is there anything else you wish you knew in undergrad that would have helped you in law school or get you to law school?
I would offer, I think, two pieces of advice. In undergrad, I went straight from 4 years of getting my bachelor's into 3 years of going to law school. And I didn't consider taking a gap year. I'm not here to tell you to take a gap year. What I am saying is that you should consider taking a year off to live life, to experience working, to get more understanding of the legal industry, like working at a law firm or teaching English in a different country. I didn't consider taking a gap year because I, again, came from very financially insecure circumstances. And I felt that if I took a gap year, I would not go back to law school. I would get a job and I would like making money, that I would not want to give it up to go back to school. So I decided to go from undergrad straight into law school. One thing I wish I had considered or did while I was an undergrad was consider taking a gap year, maybe doing a fellowship, teaching English, working, and simply really figuring out if law school was truly for me. Another piece of advice I would have for undergraduate students considering law school is setting a budget, like becoming financially literate. When I tell you at 26 years old, even after law school, I'm learning how to be financially literate. Taxes, student loans, retirement funds, stocks, Roth IRAs, rainy day savings, how to file your taxes. All of these things aren't necessarily something you need to know in depth in undergrad, but as you get closer to law school and law school applications, it is important to have a financial literacy to a degree where you understand the impact of what it means to take out student loans to go to law school, what it means and the importance of applying for scholarships to make law school more affordable. So I would say take time in undergrad if you are not financially literate, if you are not blessed to have known or have been given parents that taught you, the foundational understanding of finance, to also become comfortable and knowledgeable of finance as you get closer to applying for law school, because it does cost a lot of money.
Thank you. I'm sure that's definitely a really important point. I know that I'll need to learn how to be financially literate. That's something that I have no idea how to do. So I'll definitely take that into consideration. And I know earlier you talked about the legal clinic that you worked at. So this question kind of has to do with that. But what has been your favorite course in law school or favorite experience, I would say, in law school thus far, and why?
Yeah, I would definitely have to say it was my experience doing the legal clinic. The legal clinic's name was called the Hunters, what was it? Hold on. The Hunter Clinic for Violence Against Women and Children. So through that clinic, whenever you go to law school, you'll have the opportunity to take what are called clinics, and they'll count towards your academic requirements or credits. And you also meet as if it's a typical course during the week. You'll also go to court, to hearings, meeting with your outside of the classroom to help you understand, to read and to write. But the majority of what it means to be a lawyer, to represent people, to do the job well, you have to learn by getting your hands dirty. What I mean by that is actually working with the people, actually applying what you've learned, taking it outside of the class and advocating, right? Law is all about advocating. Not only do you need to understand how to read and write it, but you have to be well-spoken, you have to be able to communicate, and you have to be able to establish relationships with the people you represent. And to me, during that clinic, I learned a lot about myself and was challenged because my clients were typically children. And that is very emotionally traumatizing, not just for the child, but also as a young law student attorney who hasn't even gotten her degree, hasn't even passed the bar. And experience, which is what my professor said, but it teaches you also, you have to do the job well because people's lives are on the line, at least in family and children, right? So that was the most incredible experience. And then an additional experience I got to do, which was really cool getting to do during law school, was during the same clinic, in addition to representing clients, we had a capstone project. So I worked with a team where we developed an app, like an app. So here's me getting to take my creative sort of passion and apply it to the law. So we essentially decoded a lot of the criminal code and created an app that helps formerly incarcerated individuals determine if they are eligible for record expungement. So that means whether or not this person, after coming out of prison, can have their record wiped clean so they can apply for jobs. So we created a whole app that's been used by thousands of people in Texas, where they can hop on this app, determine if they can have their record cleared, and where they can act entertain you guys with my talent from Miss Texas. She's back. Okay, let's see if it's working. Let her
I'm
do
so
my best.
sorry.
No, you're okay.
Wi-Fi
Well, you
is-
told me, we'll preface this by letting everyone know, apparently your university is having some difficulty with the Wi-Fi. So no worries, you're okay.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Um, okay, so I'm assuming that you answered that question. Okay, so our next question, these are kind of going away from the law school journey and process and just more general questions. And this question says, recognizing that you work for a law firm in New York, are a law student, graduated, and have a nonprofit organization that helps children in third world countries, and is a full-time content creator, how do you manage your time and accomplish multiple responsibilities at the same time? And how do you balance your work and personal life?
Oh, on your plate. Yourself, be respectful to yourself, and set boundaries. It is important to know where you are pushing the line. So if someone comes to you and asks you, can you complete this assignment? Can you complete this project? Hey, I've got another contract. Can you do this? Or can you attend this meeting or event? And you already know you've taken too much. You need to give them a soft no. And a soft no is essentially, hey, I think I have a little bit too much on my plate. I will kindly let you know that I don't think I can make it, but thank you for considering me. That's a soft no. There's power in the word no, and it is important to use it when you want to set those boundaries for yourself and protect your mental health. Second, whenever you're doing a lot of things, it's important to communicate. Communication is key. If you don't know how to use email, you better learn how to use it, because you'll be using a lot of email, not only as you apply for law schools, but during law school and after. It is how you forge relationships with people. I know it sounds outdated. You're like, I use Snapchat, okay? I text. That's how I communicate with people. No, email. You got to learn how to use it professionally, because it is the gateway to doing all the work that you need to accomplish or what I have to do. And then finally, creating workflows. What I mean by that is creating a process or a flow for assignments for your homework that is efficient. In our lives, we function on flows. Flows meaning your morning routine, right? What do you do normally when you wake up? Your religious flow. What do you do to worship whatever it is that you worship on, say a Sunday? How can you make that efficient and make sure you carve out time for that particular flow and get that done so that you have time for other things? Making a more efficient workflow when it comes to emailing. Are there things that you can set up that are automatic responses to requests that come in a lot of times? And are you ready and can you outsource your work to other people to make it a more community effort rather than placing all that responsibility onto yourself? This goes all the way back to that one of those first questions of community building or networking. Rely on your community building and outsource when you can to do a more community effort based approach when completing projects or contracts, or in your case, assignments and homework.
For sure. I'm on my personal
And
spot now, so hopefully things will be better. But talking about the emailing and knowing how to write emails and stuff like that, the question is, what is your advice on networking with professors and getting those recommendation letters for law school?
start early. Start early. Don't walk in during finals week and you've never talked to this professor before in person and ask for a recommendation letter. Professors have an office hour for a reason. Many of them will say yes if you ask them to coffee. And I encourage you to do this during syllabus week. I know syllabus week is already come and gone, but for next semester, for example, if you have new courses and new professors that you want to build a relationship with, I recommend getting a kickstart on offering them to get coffee, learning more about what they do as a person. And when you do that, it also creates a more connection to the course you're taking. It makes you excited to learn and to get the work done when you know the professor on a personal level. So I would say start early, ask to go out for coffee. Don't ask for a recommendation letter late in the game during finals week. It's kind of offensive to them. But if you're desperate, I get it. You know, desperate times calls for desperate measures. So those are my two biggest pieces of advice. And yeah, it's a little awkward and intimidating again, coming from an immigrant family, coming from being told that I need to be independent and not ask for help. I had a lot of trouble asking for help of my professors and going to their office hours because I detested having to meet with them one-on-one in like a conversational setting. So if you're afraid doing that, ask for a friend to tag along so that it doesn't feel as intimidating. So set up like a study group with them and have 3 or 4 people meet with your professor once a month to review material. That's another way to get over the fear of, not necessarily fear, but if you are an introvert, for example, and you get anxious with social settings, to invite people to come along so that you don't feel as if it's a more one-on-one intimate setting.
Thank you. I think that getting to know them on a more personal level part was really important because one of my professors this quarter is like telling us about her advocacy work and all of that. And it's like getting my like friends and I really, really excited to listen to her lectures. So that's definitely really important. Thank you for that. And then the next question is, how did this, you kind of touched on this already, but how did your leadership experience help you throughout undergrad, law school, and how did it shape you as a person?
Got it. Okay. So question, how did my leadership experience shape me into the person I am today? And what were those exact leadership experiences? For me, a lot of my leadership experience came from the nonprofit that I created with my mom. When I was growing up, again, I felt very embarrassed and shy of where I came from. I didn't think I would have it in me to be a public speaker, to communicate with people, to do university conversations. I didn't even think I had the confidence to stand on stage and do theater or sing or perform. But it wasn't until I learned that it's so important to grow a love for what makes you different so that you can grow others around you. And that's what a leader is all about. It's all about growing others, not necessarily leading them, not necessarily telling people what to do. But as a leader, it is up to you to provide resources to empower people themselves. And it's so amazing to see other people around you grow from you helping them and providing them with what they need. So during undergrad, my main source of gaining leadership confidence was managing that nonprofit with my mom. I had to communicate a lot with people overseas. I had to travel a lot by myself. I had to meet with administrative staff and even politicians in the Philippines to establish our nonprofit presence over there. Another way that I built confidence and also leadership skills was competing for the Miss America Scholarship Organization. So people call it a pageant, but it's mostly scholarship based, where they provide scholarships to women for competing on stage, for example, in on-stage question, in talent, and social impact pitch. So that also helped me gain a lot of confidence in becoming the leader that I am today. But at the end of the day, one of the greatest pieces of advice I have for you, excuse me, if you want to be a leader, is focusing not on yourself, but focusing on the people in your community and helping them grow.
Thank you. I really like what you said about like growing and all the community-based things that you mentioned in your presentation today. I think that's really important to keep in mind. And then my final question from me is, what advice would you share with our undergraduate body who aspires to attend law school in the future and become the next generation of women leaders?
Okay, so you kind of broke out, so I'll repeat the question for everyone on the Zoom meeting. The question was, what advice would you share with our undergraduate body who aspires to attend law school and become the next generation of women leaders? Sometimes it's going to feel like the world is working against you. It's going to feel like everything is tumbling around you. It's going to feel like everything just isn't going to work out at the end of the day, because whether it's the gender makeup of the industry, whether it's the lack of resources of the industry, whether there's not enough financial support and resources and scholarships for those of us who are women and wanting to go into the legal industry, or just wanting to be a leader in general, it will feel like there are a lot of closed doors. So I encourage you to be creative, to be innovative, and to rely on those around you to create those opportunities for yourself. A lot of the reason why there's not a lot of representation, why there's not a lot of women in, say, Fortune 500 CEO positions who are female partners at big law firms, is because we are not fighting to carve out opportunities for ourselves. We can't do that alone. We can't do that independently. And the ways that I have opened opportunities for myself, how I've built my own business, how I have built my own nonprofit, how I have carved out the journey I wanted for myself when I was a child, what I dreamed of, was because I had to take it upon myself to create those opportunities for myself by relying on the community that has helped me become the person that I am today.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Although I think she's frozen.
Am I frozen again? Am I frozen?
No. Well, I think you're fine now.
Okay.
I can hear you, but your screen's frozen.
Okay. This is so super unfortunate. If you can hear me, that's great. I will also put the question in the chat in a second. But now I am. Oh my goodness. Okay. We can hear me. Yes. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Because my Wi-Fi is not cooperating with me, unfortunately. I'm going to pass it over to Rudy, who's the president of the club. So I'm going to send her over the questions and then she will continue this. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. There's only like a few questions
No.
left anyways, so
Yeah.
you're good.
Hi, Averie. So my name is Riti Patel. I'm as the president for this year. And my Wi-Fi is also bad because I'm in the dorms, but this is a UCLA issue that I think that they're working on. But one of the questions that we received is, would you consider your major to be a great part in your presentation and admission to law school? For example, being a history major and not something traditional like political science.
I will be the first to tell you that your major does not matter when you apply for law school. It matters in the sense that whichever major you choose will likely equip you with a better understanding of reading and writing, which is necessary for law school. But some of the most successful students in my class who graduated in the top 10% were cooks. They were chefs. Some of them were musical theater majors. I was not top 10% of my class, okay? I enjoyed my time in law school. I did my best, I did my readings, but the really smarty pants of the class, they had the most incredible wide-ranging majors. So I recommend that what you do choose, if you choose a major that is not necessarily traditional, for example, I did human rights and sociology, which I think was kind of lens towards liberal arts, which is what law is. If you're choosing to do, say, STEM, biology, math, and that doesn't necessarily align with law school, in fact, it's a complete contrast of law school, then at that point, when you're majoring in those things because you're passionate about it, take additional electives or courses that are reading and writing heavy. So upper class philosophy or English courses where you're writing papers and reading all the time. At the end of the day, just make sure that whatever you're majoring in, you are incorporating some reading and writing courses so that you can continue majoring in something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. Do not let your major determine whether or not you're going to have fun or be successful in law school. If you already know you're going to go to law school, you might as well major in something that you like, okay? So don't worry about it.
Thank you for that answer. And I think that it's really helpful, like you said, to take those courses to see if we actually like reading and writing, because that's primarily what we're most likely going to be doing in law school. With that said, our next question is by someone who said, I'm a huge fan. I had a question regarding LLM program. How does it work? And do you think an LLM is worth it?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I don't know too much about LLM programs because I didn't take it. I took the typical 3-year Juris Doctorate, but my understanding, an LLM is what you get if you're an international student, and it's an additional year or two specializing in a type of law in a different country. So if I wanted an LLM, I would go to a different country, or I would specialize in a type of law and really hone in on particular courses. Say, the most popular LLM at my law school was tax, because tax is a very difficult law to understand with a very limited amount of time spent on it in law school. So unless you're an international student wanting to work in a different country, or if you know you want to specialize in a type of law already, either through your experience in law school or from your job experience, process. Again, I've never done it before, so I'm not sure what that looks like, but I'm assuming it's very similar in the case to applying for law school. There's no additional exams that you have to take, since at that point you will already have your Juris Doctorate degree from either here in the US or from a different country.
Thank you for that question. The next one we have is someone came in and wanted to see if you had any tips regarding LSAT preparation.
Yes. Okay, so 3 major things. First, I will admit, I was what's called a split applicant. That means my GPA was extremely high and my LSAT score was above average. So the national average is a 154. I got around like a 161. So it was above average, but my GPA score was extremely high. If you are a split applicant, I know that causes a lot of stress and anxiety about whether or not you should take the LSAT again. That is a personal decision for you to make. I did not take the LSAT again. I took it once because I knew as a split applicant, my GPA being a 3.99 would carry me through the law school application process. So I decided to just commit to the one score I got from the LSAT exam and just hope for the best. So that's what I did, number one. The way that I studied, number two, was I used the PowerScore LSAT Trilogy Bibles. Those are 3 books that you can buy online. I self-studied, and because I only got an above average LSAT score, my biggest regret, if I'm going to be honest, is I wish I had timed myself sooner. Time yourself as much as possible. Don't wait until 3 weeks before the exam and you're like, okay, let's start taking time sections. No, really, like the moment as you finish chapters or explanations in your workbooks, whatever program you choose to use, start timing yourself. And then finally, do not sit for longer than 4 hours at a time. Study for the length of the exam. That is 4 hours. Practice sitting and studying, doing practice exams, time sections, reading your workbooks for the length of the exam. That is 4 hours. I wish I had done those two things. Time sections earlier and sit for 4 hours at a time studying for the LSAT.
For that advice, I'm also studying for the LSAT right now, and I think that sitting only for 4 hours is really helpful because I noticed even if I put in like 5 hours or 6 hours, I'm not consuming as much as if I'm like concentrated for a solid hour. So I think that's really great advice, and that's something that I'm going to be more conscious of when I'm studying. With that said, our next question is, hi Avery, I was curious about how you initially started in pageants and how it felt to take off a year as Miss Texas before taking the bar. Love your work.
Yes, hello. Okay, so the number one reason why I decided to compete for the Miss America Scholarship Competition was because I was desperate for scholarship money. So Miss America is the largest scholarship provider for women in the United States. So they give millions of dollars specifically to just women. So if you identify as a woman, you are welcome to compete between the ages of 18 and 26. I competed my first year in 2019. That was the year I was starting my first year of law school. And remember how I mentioned I was not financially literate at the time? I had negative $29 in my checking account. Negative $29 with like only a few scholarships to help cover my tuition. So I was like, you know what? Miss America stands for what I stand for: strong, high achieving, future female leaders. So I competed and I won $25,000 my first year competing at Miss Texas. And after that first year, while my first intention of competing was for the money, then it turned into representation. I quickly learned there had never been an Asian American woman win the title of Texas, of the Lone Star State, in 85 years. So I took it upon myself to at least help open that door for the women who come behind me. And the really cool thing is that I unlocked it, like completely. So it's been such an honor and a blessing to compete. If you're interested at all, if you're considering it, so when I compete for Miss America in December, I will be up for $200,000. That will pay my entire law school student debt plus more. So if you're interested, you can reach out to me. I will hook you up with whatever state that you are in. I'm assuming it's California because you guys are zooming from California. But the two main reasons was for scholarship money, and then second, representation and expanding my social platform, which is diversity and inclusion.
Thank you for that. Our last question is going to be, how did you know which law school was best for you? And do you have any advice regarding people choosing law schools?
Yes. So the main factor that a lot of people tend to look at is rank, right? You hear tier 1, tier 2, 12th, second, like all of these rankings. You can get very overwhelmed with the ranks online. For me, I think it's a case-by-case basis. It is such a personal decision of where you go to law school. I think you must consider, in addition to rank, I don't think you necessarily have to put all of your eggs in that one basket. But number 2, you need to consider the cost. And number 3, the geographical location of where you want to work. Okay? Because if anything, law school, it is an opportunity to build your community. Where do you want the majority of your community to be located? For me, I knew I wanted to run for a public office or be involved in politics in Texas, because that's where I'm from. I grew up in a community in North Texas, and I know for a fact that one of the reasons I got my law degree was to go into government and represent the communities that I come from. The really cool thing too is I started law school and I committed to law school to SMU specifically because it was the most prestigious law school in Dallas. I wanted to stay in Dallas because I wanted to run for office in Dallas at some point. And my second year of law school, through the community I built in that geographical location, I was appointed by the mayor of Dallas to be on his advisory council for anti-hate and discrimination. So full circle, right? Like my intention of going to law school was fully based on the geographical location and also the money. They offered some pretty good scholarships. Those two things combined is what made me make my decision to stay at SMU and go there in Dallas. And so it's really cool to see how all of that came into fruition and how I'm doing what I set out to do through law school. If you want to work in New York, aim to go to a university in New York. But I also have read that if you do go to a tier 1 school, so like the top 12, top 14 law schools, you don't necessarily need to go to this a school in the geographical location you work, because the degree transcribes across the entire country. So if you have a law degree from Harvard, obviously you'll be able to leverage the network and alumni in different states from Harvard. But again, where do you want to work? That's one of the factors you should consider that a lot of law students don't think about.
Thank you for that. That's something that I'm also looking into. Like when I'm applying to schools, I'm mostly focused on California schools because this is where I was born and raised, and I love the state. So I also want to practice here. But that was one of the last questions that we're going to be taking from the chat. We wanted to end things off by asking if you have any last words of advice or wisdom you'd like to share with our members that they can take after this call.
Sure. Last thing I'll say is that the law, the legal industry, and honestly, most service-based careers are people-oriented. It is people first. So if you don't like people, if you don't enjoy people, I recommend that if you still want to do law school, to build those personable, soft skills that you need to build a community and to make connections with your future clients. Law is all about people. The law serves people, and you have to not necessarily love people, but you do need to make genuine connections with them and know how to connect with them in a transparent and honest way. And then if you are interested in contacting me and connecting, I saw something in the chat. You can email me, averiebishoppartnerships@gmail.com. There you go. That's it.
Thank you for that. We'll also put your email then in our newsletter. So when people want to come and to watch the recording afterwards, they can also have access to it. But thank you so much for coming. And before everyone, you guys leave, we can take a screenshot if you guys want to turn on your cameras. If not, that's okay too, but we think that that would be really fun.
I'm gonna make it into gallery mode so that we can see everyone. There we go.
Emma, do you want to take the screenshot?
Yeah, I can do that. All right. Okay, so feel free to turn your cameras if you want to, no pressure. Okay. So I'm taking the screenshot in 3. Whoa, hold on, people are still turning on their cameras. Let me give them a second.
Wait, also shout out to the friends in the chat who direct messaged me. It was Helen. Hold on, sorry. Helen Morales, it's nice meeting you too. Thanks for following. And also to V or Vi. Thanks for sending those really sweet messages. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm taking the screenshot in 3, 2, 1. All right, there we go. Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll chat to you guys soon and good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Bye.
coming.
I think you have to stop the recording.